But then Time Magazine did this cover piece on her, and they called it the Reintroduction of Kamala Harris. And I just want to get your insight on it, because they said Harris has pulled off this vibe shift in modern political history, a contest that revolved around the cognitive decline of a geriatric president has been transformed. Joe Biden is out, Harris is in, and a second Donald Trump presidency is no longer inevitable. So that's just craziness. It's like we don't care anymore. It is right up in your face. This is who it is, and the whole entire machine is behind her.
The truth of the matter is, you can justify doing all this if you believe the end justifies the means. The end justifies the means is a doctrine for communism that says you can do whatever you have to do to achieve power and increase government control. Mao said it a different way. All power comes from the barrel of a gun. It means if I'm bigger, stronger than you are, I have the power and you don't have access to any of it. And the only way to get it is through revolution. So that's what we saw. We saw a coup. We saw a failed presidential candidate. She was chosen based on a trade that Obama made with Biden, saying, I'll endorse you in June, but you have to pick Kamala Harris as your vice president. And she is an entity that then hid in plain sight. Everything she touched went bad, but apparently she can read a teleprompter. So she meets the basic criteria to be the Democratic president of the United States. They have hope that they could beat Donald Trump. And they can argue the direction of the country, except for in very vague terms. They're going to argue that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and must be stopped at all costs. That's what they've been arguing for 4 years. It's how they justified the lawfare against President Trump. It's how they've justified breaking every rule, every tradition in order to put people in jail for political thought. And so they've justified it all, and we have to stop Donald Trump. Now they've put the soft coup, the Democrat leaders and the elites, the billionaires and the elites pulled off. And remember, the reason that Joe Biden actually agreed to leave was because the money dried up. Billionaires were saying, we're not going to give any money until you get out of the way. So make no mistake, this wasn't a Democrat uprising. This was a Silicon Valley billionaire and big bank uprising. They said, we're not going to pour billions of dollars into electing you, Joe Biden. You've got to get out of the way. But it was a coup. And the scary part about this, and it's just, we talked about it at the very beginning, the scary part about this is they have been able to change Google searches to make it so you have to really try hard to get the truth. Right. And when you have that, it's really difficult and they're very self-congratulatory over what they did. I will give the one piece of hope in this is that Donald Trump got about 8 million more votes in 2020 than he got in 2016. That's with no mass media support, with the various platforms being aggressively against him. I've been a lobbyist who's seen a lot about how the sausage is made that the public really doesn't need to know about, but it's just some hard-bitten stuff. I never thought that I would see a system just automatically go into overdrive to create a new persona and erase somebody's 20, 25-year history in politics. And that's what we've seen happen in this instance. We have seen, you talked about the GovTrack eliminating the page who identified her as the most liberal senator. Now, this was 2019. She served with Elizabeth Warren. She served with Bernie Sanders. Yet she was deemed to be more liberal than Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. So when you look at it from a policy perspective, you look at what she votes for, what she believes in, what she wants to fight for, those are all policies far removed from the American mainstream. And yet, what people are now being fed is it's okay to eliminate the votes of 14.5 million Democrats who took their time in the cold of New Hampshire, the cold of Iowa, They've spent time working. They did all those things. They put elbow grease in as well as going to the polls. The fact that they were able to replace and totally erase the record of Kamala Harris that rapidly, you have to know that this was the plan all along. And if you need proof that this was the plan all along, all you have to do is look and see that Robert Hur, who was a special counsel looking at the confidential documents case, said that Joe Biden was not capable of standing trial. That was released in September of 2023. He knew that if he could see that when he was interviewing Biden, everybody around him knew it. This wasn't news. We were called all sorts of names because we kept saying it was true. They said, no, you're just conspiracy theorists. And yet they did not. They basically kept people off the ballot. They didn't have a legitimate primary system. And then they did something unprecedented. They set up a debate before the conventions where they knew he'd fail. And he did. Joe Biden was given a chance to show that he was okay. He showed he wasn't. In various interviews, they had a replacement plan. They dumped Kamala Harris in. And Trump's pollster warned that she's going to get a bump, and she may even look like she's taking the lead over Donald Trump initially, because she's going to get a honeymoon period. And all those people who said, I can't vote for Biden, are now going to say, I might be able to vote for her. And so you get this 3 to 5 point swing that shifts back and forth. And that's what's happened right now. The question is, are we going to allow her to remake herself? Are we going to allow them to get away with, and I say them because it's the media as a whole, it's the same media that in 2021 had in headlines, Harris appointed border czar, now deny that she was ever the border czar. She had any culpability for the border 3 years later. We cannot depend on the same electorate being enough because they've got a plan to beat that electorate. They know pretty much how many votes Donald Trump's going to get right now.